Having me. Thank you for inviting me, Dottie. I would like to give my condolences as well um, to all the families and who are lost someone. Um, Here at Spectrum, we have started different different committees lately, recently, which one was the Diversity and Inclusion Steering Committee, also the Empathy Awareness Committee. I am close and dear to the Empathy Awareness Committee. Here, our goal is to support our staff, support our clients, the families who've experienced and who personally endure this loss. The goal is to support each other in a time of need throughout the grieving process. This is split twofold, of course, because we're talking about the employees as well as our clients that come in. Here we're having those conversations within this committee about ways of supporting our clinicians and the TCMs and the peers who are involved with our clients, supporting in a way of making sure that there's some time, possibly looking at some time in the day, taking a moment to get grounded, possibly looking at ways of healthy grieving, making sure that we're connecting to each other in an individualized way, because we all grieve so differently, so individualized. And of course, again, we all have been impacted in a different way. So here, we're trying to just make sure that we are able to support our staff, support the families, and to put our arms around everybody and show as much love and empathy as possible.
Thank you, Lainey. Liz, you want to share?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for thanks for facilitating this forum, Dottie, and the partnership. It's really important for us to be able to get together and talk about how we can support our staff and our community. Our teams have been on the ground since right after the shooting, when the commissioner called and asked us to deploy folks to the scene. We have a lot of folks who work at Best Self who live in and around that community. So we already had folks on the scene with the families when they were told, et cetera. So really been able to be on the front lines of the mental health response on the ground. We're currently staffing three different locations in terms of mental health support in partnership with Spectrum and Crisis Services and Endeavor. We've been at the Johnny B. Wiley Stadium since Sunday, providing mental health emergency, crisis support. We're also in partnership with law enforcement at the Resource Center on Ferry, and TOPS also reached out to us to ask us to provide support to their associates. So we've been doing that at the Meriwether Library also since Sunday. So it's been very busy and dynamic time for our folks on the ground, but I think that that's part of how we show support to our staff, is by allowing them the space to volunteer and spend their time in their community. Mental health professionals that we have from that community, allowing them that space to provide support to their community, and facilitating and organizing that, as well as facilitating other Black clinicians in the community who want to be part of that. So that's been our role. We also have been really trying to make sure that we stay in communication. So we have a daily email transparency going out around, what doing in the community, and also just trying to be in touch with staff, asking them what does support look like for them. And I think for every staff person, it's a little bit different. So trying to facilitate and offer different forums. So maybe forums in smaller groups, forums in larger groups, forums that are just for Black staff. And maybe forums for our leadership, so that people can talk about what they're seeing and experiencing and express what support looks like for them. We've encouraged all of our program managers to have kind of an open door so that people can just drop in, whether that's with other staff or with the program leadership. And I try to also make myself very available to folks. I was out on the scene with our chief people officer yesterday, and I was just asking people, what does support look like? What do you need from us? So that's kind of been our approach.
So thank you for sharing that, and we're lucky to have this kind of infrastructure in the community being put to work. The people who have tuned in today are employers that are looking to sort of be able to support their own workforces. And I think, this may be stating the obvious, but in addition to the actual direct community, really, well, the entire community has been affected, but because this was a racist attack with intention to kill Black people, this is impacting all Black people, not just in Buffalo, but around the country. And so, and we all have Black members of our teams. And so I think employers, and what we are hearing from them is they're struggling because they know they want to do the right thing and they're afraid they're going to do the wrong thing. Right. So what we want you to really focus on today as you're talking is as if you're giving an advice to an employer who's trying to really help navigate this to make sure that their employees and who are both directly affected, if they were, for example, if they live in the neighborhood, but also who are impacted because of the level of this horrible tragedy. Pardon me. So let's talk about people who fall into those categories that I mentioned. What are the most immediate needs that employers should be thinking about in terms of staff and people on this call who are allies and have colleagues and family and friends of people who are on this call? What are the most immediate needs of our community members? So, Anne, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I think the very first need is a sense of safety and centering and calming of where are you, just to, there was, an immediate real fear that people felt. And, fear can sometimes be absolutely connected to what's going on. And other times it can feel irrational and almost embarrassing to be that scared, right? And we know that in the first day or two, there was some of the issues with other threats and other communities that were seeing then kind of the visible effects of racism and violence, and then the fear. So I think a sense of safety is very important to let people know that we're there for them, that calming. And then
translate that into a tactic for us. So if an employer wants to create a sense of calm, like what a sense of safety, what is it that they should, how can they do that? What are some of the ways they can do that?
Actually assess the physical safety of the building.
Okay.
To review any emergency policies that you have. We actually walked people through in all of our buildings, walked them back through all of the safety devices and mechanics that we had. Creating that, just reminding people that we're safe, and this is how because we deal with the public, this is how we deal with the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
So practical, sometimes just practical. And it's not mandatory. It's, here at one of the buildings, it was just at noon, anybody who wants to do the walkthrough of the safety procedures, and pretty much everybody went to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good suggestion in the sense that reminding people that there are protocols that are in place for safety. That's a great tactical suggestion. Liz, do you have any thoughts about the sort of making your employees feel safe in their space?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, we want to create an atmosphere where people can come forward with their ideas. because we don't know, they know. So I think saying to them, what does support look like? Please let us know what you need. And so then you go from there. So, I mean, what we've heard is people want a space where they can share and where they can talk. So we've had program directors just open up their, conference rooms and let people come in and out and talk if they want and talk if they don't want. We also have staff who live in the neighborhood who were afraid to go grocery shopping over the weekend. So their teams got together and sent them groceries or sent them DoorDash cards so that they could, feel safe in that way. We've definitely had an ask for, forums. We do restorative justice circles regularly on at Best Self for our staff. So we set up some of those very quickly, some for all white staff. Some for all Black staff, I should say, some for a mixed group, just having those. We have some in person, we have some virtual so that people can come if they want to share with others who are feeling the same way. We also are encouraging people to take time off if they need it. It's very important that we remind people about their PTO. So some people are going to want to be working on the ground 24 hours a day and others need a little time off. So I've been sending out a daily email, a response, an update on the shooting response and just letting folks know what we're up to in the community, but also providing resources on crisis intervention techniques, on ways to work with their clients, ways to interact with each other. So, every day kind of an email from me. And yesterday's email said, please remember to use your PTO if you need it, reach out for support and, let us know what support looks like.
Liz, if those types of communications, if there's anything that you think applies to any business, if you share them with us, we'll share them with today's attendees so they can see samples of what you're talking about. So those are all incredibly good suggestions. So Mulaney, I think it's important that we set the stage here about what are people going through the stages of the grief, and what should we be anticipating, not just right now, but sort of next. Maybe you could walk us through that from your perspective.
Thank you. So when I'm talking to my African-American clients, they're expressing feelings of anger, sadness, irritation, and it's mostly due to the uncertainty of where do we go from here? So of course I try to promote positivity and using words of encouragement and hope, and try to continue reflecting on what we are already working on, which were their inner strengths, and reminding them of their goals and their pursuits and moving forward in their own lives. When we talk about grief and we talk about the stages, we're basically talking about, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the stages of grief and how it all works. So grief can be like a roller coaster, right? So it's like a crazy roller coaster where one moment you're in one stage and the next moment you're in the next stage, and 3 weeks down the line and a year down the line, we're still back and forth. It doesn't specifically have to end for anyone in particular in a special or specific way. So we have to be mindful that when we go through grief, there's shock. People are numb, right? Being shocked, not knowing what to think, what's next. Then there's denial, wanting to avoid it, not wanting to talk about it, but needing to talk about it, needing to have those conversations, but not knowing who to talk to. The anger, angry at who? So our conversations are angry at who? How do you feel? How have you been impacted? What can we do to try to help you through this stage? Because again, if we're talking about a roller coaster, the anger is going to pop its head out again.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Keep going. Yeah. No.
When my clients are having outbursts, right? So yeah. So let's go to fear, because fear is big in this one. And I actually think that what this person done was try to create fear within us, division, right? Try to make us play against each other. In hate, and hate, right? And so now we're talking about, we have our people who are experiencing fear and shock and denial, and they're panicking, and they're angry, and they're uncertain. And at this time, this is a time where we need to have those conversations about, where do we go? What do we do? So I promote, let's continue to work on self. Let's continue to try to work for the greater good of it. Let's look at the way that we are going to experience this grief. There's going to be some depression, right? It's going to test us. But at some point, we're going to get to some acceptance. We're going to get to some hope. We're going to get to a place where we're able to say, you know what? I think I can move on. But in that process, it's going to take us to step out of ourselves and try to work on helping others, getting out, doing some things that we normally do. But right now, this tragedy having us in a stronghold can cause us to not recognize what space we're in within this grief. So in this place, again, we are going to, it's a teeter-totter type of slope. I don't know if any of you ever kind of looked at the horseshoe. I do teach a grief and loss class. And in that class, we recognize that the strength and the patterns go back and forth. I have hope today. I'm mad, I'm hurt, I'm upset, I'm sad, but I'm gonna get through.
You know,
Mhm.
Melanie, maybe you could start this conversation, but I think I'd like to hear from all of you. And we don't have to wait. We can just like have a conversation here. But, you know, I think what's so, I'm going to say challenging about this is we're talking about a population that needs trauma-informed care every day. Right. I mean, people who have experienced racism every day, who have fear every day, and live in communities sometimes that are not as safe as or they worry about their children or whatever. We hear this, and so you take a community that is already dealing with the trauma of that, and in this community, economic challenges as well. And you add on to it the fact that this was a massacre that was intended with, as you pointed out, hatefully and with racism. So this feels like, you know, this feels like a lot, right? This feels like not a typical, you know, this isn't a flood, you know, this is different, and in a way, and not to minimize anybody's pain, but I'm just saying, I think for the community and the community members and people who are Black in this community, this is you know, this is beyond, I don't even know how to describe it. So in that way, with that lens, what do employers need to understand who don't understand that many of their Black employees are coming to work carrying that burden every day, and, you know, basically showing up at work and now have this added burden? Can you just help employers understand that? You know, what would you all do with trauma-informed care and this population in particular, and the challenges that we have in our community? Emmeline, you want to just start, and then we'll go to Liz. You know, do you have any comments about that?
So when I think about how our employees can support us in this time, I think back to how I support my clients.
Okay.
So I think about the need, the importance of being aware that something did happen. And we talk about grief. Grief can last for a day for some people, right? That's because the thought is that someone passed away. Okay, back to business. So one of the things that Liz mentioned was making sure that we are really in tune to that a client passing away or a client's family member passing away is important, and it impacts their lives, right? It impacts their lives. And so thereby, if I work with this person for 2 years, it impacts my life.
Right.
whether I am Caucasian, African American, Latino, right? It doesn't, whatever creed, it impacts me. And so I think it's important to recognize that if you are an employer, give us some space, give us some time. Announce it's okay for me to take an hour to walk around the corner. It's okay for me to go and sit in the lounge room and just breathe for a moment and somebody to see my counselors for my clients for a half an hour. Give me the option to go out and receive counseling outside if I'm unwilling to receive it here. Email me. Come give me a hug. Call me. Let me know that you are not there watching me, but you're here with me. Let me know that I'm not sitting in this office taking care of my clients in this office, in this building, in this company, and you're not taking care of me. Hold me like I hold my clients. Hold me like I hold the African American and people of color community. Show me the empathy and the love that I need to give me what I need to give it to them.
That's beautifully said, Melanie. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Liz and Anne, any commentary on that at all that you'd like to
Yeah, I just
add?
wanted to say thank you, Melanie, because I think you really said it all from a perspective of someone from the Black community. So I think that that's exactly what we need to be doing. We need to be opening up spaces where people who are from the community can come and tell us how they feel and what they need. I do have folks who are from that community who directly report to me, and I am available to them. They call me if they want to, but I'm not intrusive. I'm not going into their office and saying, you need to tell me everything. But if they want to tell me, I'm here. If they want to ask for whatever kind of assistance works for them. So my chief operating officer wants to be in the field pretty much 24/7. So allowing her that space to do that. And then my role is to do her job duties and be on the back end and be supportive. And when she needs something, I make sure that it gets there. She asked for pizza and cold pop yesterday, so we brought that down on site. So just listening and being there and being available, but not thinking that we know what folks need without asking. So I think that Melanie really said that perfectly.
What I'm hearing you both say is that from an employer's point of view, there has to be intentionality here. Right? You have to be explicit in saying it's okay, or there is this conference room, or you should take so I mean, that's a message that people who are on this call should hear, that you can't let these things that if we really want to help, it has to be with intention, not just hoping that it'll work itself out. I think that's what I'm hearing both of you say. Am I just nod if I got that right? Okay.
And I think even if someone comes to you and is crying or is upset, that doesn't necessarily mean that they want to take PTO. They might feel that they need to be there for their community or be there for their clients. So you want to facilitate. We don't want to send people home because they're upset. We want to say, what is this? What do you need? Do you need, like Melanie said, walk around the block or take a break or talk to someone, and just ask.
Well, we all grieve differently. And so that's why, some of us don't want to be touched. Some of us don't want to be, it's okay, you're all right. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. That means that fear that this has created, this fear, we don't need to be in it though, right? Because if we are truly united, if we are truly on the same page, then it's okay for you to look at me and say, hey, Melanie, you okay? Hey, come here. Can we talk for a second? Hey, I just wanted to check on you and make sure you're okay. That doesn't have to be mushy. It doesn't have to be mushy. But what it does give me is a sense of unity. So that way I can go home and say, you know what? Y'all can say what y'all want, or no, it's not everybody. It's not everybody, but I need to feel that. I need to feel that from work, from the community, from the people I'm around.
I think, Dottie, one of the, had a couple of calls from employers, and one of the concerns that employers frankly have is they're not comfortable in the space. They don't feel like they know enough, or they're afraid they're going to make a mistake. And I think two suggestions I would have, very practical, is learn. Learn, look things up, ask people, go to events like this, learn, right, what the experience is. And two, be vulnerable. Be vulnerable and be present for that real connection, the real emotional connection to happen. Because we all have our limitations, but if we are operating as leaders from a position of, and I'll use the word love, and connecting and caring, that goes a long way to make up for what I might lack in skill or real knowledge. So that would be my advice to employers who are, just by the fact that they're calling in, they're concerned, they want to do well, they want to do good for people, but sometimes just don't know how to do that.
Yeah, and that's really why they're on this call, right?
Why they're on this call.
The how,
Exactly.
the how to.
Dottie,
Yeah.
before we move on, can I just
Yeah.
piggyback really quick off
Of course.
you? A kind gesture doesn't take much.
Mhm.
A kind gesture doesn't take much at all. And I heard it from someone, and I'm not going to say who I heard this from, but well-known person. He said, you have to get uncomfortable at times to get comfortable, right? You have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. So when you are in a position of a higher up position, leadership position, that is a great opportunity to be able to step out, right? And that fear of not knowing what to say, that fear of not knowing what to do, that is the time to get uncomfortable and open your mouth and do something. That's the time to get uncomfortable and step up and say, hey.
But can I just, I'm going to push back a little bit on you, just a little bit, because what we hear, and I'm going to read a question from a participant in a second, is the fear is, I don't want to injure this person further, right? So if you look at a continuum of, I'm uncomfortable and I can make it better, I'm uncomfortable, do no harm. Right. So better to do nothing than to harm. And so I think that's really what employers wrestle with, is doing the wrong thing. So let me read this and get you all your reactions. It says, I'm a white woman. I work with Black individuals who were directly impacted by the shooting. When I talk with them or I think about the pain they're feeling, I tear up. I don't want them to see this because I fear it will be uncomfortable for them or make the situation about me. It's made me have either really short or really awkward conversations where I give condolences and then excuse myself. I feel it makes me appear like I'm not really showing up for them. This is a very brilliantly worded statement, because I think it captures what a lot of employers feel. So who wants to start with a reaction? What do you do? Okay, all right, Ann, go.
I will, because I'm that white employer. And that's empathy, that's caring, and it's human. It's what makes us who we are. And I believe, and I've seen, that you get grace for that. You get grace for honest empathy that is just who you are and what you're bringing. And I would say, even as a leader, don't hide that tearfulness. I've had to speak to my entire company and struggled with the words at different times. It is what it is. And I think that humanness and authenticity is way more important than the exact rightness of what you might be doing. That's my opinion.
That's very helpful, I think. Just reminding everyone, we do have the Q&A open, and I'm sort of popping in and out of there. There's a good question here about what ideas do you have specifically for staff who work remotely and do not have office environments in which to offer support? Liz, Mulaney, somebody who wants that one?
I can take that one.
Okay.
I also just wanted to say that I totally agree with what Ann said. I think we as leaders need to bring ourselves to work. And so when people see that we also are impacted by what happened, emotionally, but we also have to take care of ourselves so that we can be strong enough to support our staff when they come to us and ask them what they need. Dottie, I just forgot the question. Can you say that?
How do we support remote
Yes, remote workers, absolutely. So I think it's very similar again. You ask them what would be helpful, set up kind of open forums. They could drop into a Zoom kind of support session if they want to be in a group to process. I think call them on the phone or set up a Zoom with them, just a huddle, a check-in. I just wanted to check in. I know that I'm feeling this. I want to know how you're feeling and what would be helpful, and just kind of, I think it's very similar. It's just a different way of reaching out to people.
Anyone else want to comment on that?
I agree. Connecting is the goal. So if people just take that one word away, connecting in an authentic manner and being present for somebody, is just doing that. It's right. It's what we do at any times of loss or grief. Just be there. It might feel awkward, but if it's true, and it means a lot to people to connect.
Can I
Please.
jump in?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I want to kind of back up just a little bit to the question before.
Okay.
When we think about, so I look at this professional world as well as my personal life and all of the people that I engage with. This past week, I went to a candlelight visual. And at the candlelight visual, there was a lot of people. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful setting. And I stood by my husband, and maybe a few feet next to me was a Caucasian woman with her African-American husband and their child. And so as I was listening to the visual, and of course I was emotional, being impacted by all this personally, of course I cried, right? And so this woman handed me some tissue from some feet over, and she just walked over, handed me some tissue, and then she walked back to where she was standing. And so at some point in the visual, they called for people to just now at the end, look to your left, look to your right, say something to each other or give a hug. So by this time, I noticed that her stance changed. Her body language changed. Her facial expression changed. And so for me, that was a cry for a connection, right? And that was that cry for the connection. Even my husband looked and said, did you know her? But my heart and the God in me, I immediately walked over to hug her. And we hugged and we embraced. And she whispered some things in my ear. And she said to me, I am so embarrassed. She said, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And I said, don't let go. Keep hugging me. Keep holding me. Keep supporting me, because we can support each other in this thing, right? Because we never know when the shoe is going to be on the other foot. So what we need to do is just hold each other and embrace each other in this moment. So when you ask the question of what to do, that is a hard place, because we are in a room together. And the truth is, we don't know who we're standing with and talking to. And look, I can't always see what you're thinking through your eyes, and you can't see what I'm thinking through my eyes. So it has to be about love, and it has to be about the connection with each other, and it has to be about how we respect each other and showing each other that we really care. If we walk around and don't say, hey, I'm here, it's okay, everybody's not going to jump up and cry to you. Everybody's not going to jump up and say, hey, listen, I'm here, I need support. That's not the way it works. We have to be the ones to say, okay, how can I help? And if I can't help right now, I want you to know that I'm here when you need me. I am available when you're ready to come to me. So I just want to put that out there, because I know from my stance, from my end, when we are in the same room, I don't know what you're thinking, just like you don't know what I'm thinking.
Well,
I know who I am, and I know I'm genuine, and I know I am of love, and I know I want to protect. And so I know that if that's the people I connect with, then we're on the same page. We're on the same page.
So Melanie, this relates to what you just said, and other folks can jump in as well. there's a comment. The panelists have mentioned several times to ask employees what they need. What if they don't know what they need? So I think what I heard you just say is just say I'm here, right? That's
offer space. It's so when we talk about the empathy awareness committee, it's a committee for in the time of need, right? So when something happens or when you feel like you're in a position where you really need, it's there. There's that conference room. There is that space for you to be able to go to the supervisor and say, hey, I'm here, and her to say, it's okay. Don't worry, we got somebody to cover you. It's having a plan in place. Let's put a plan in place to support each other in our time of need, right? So it doesn't have to be about your specific need today, Dolly, but how can we put a plan in place to make sure that when it is your time and it comes time, we have a plan to make sure that you're okay? Because we want to make sure you're okay because you do the job of making sure everybody else is okay.
so another, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ann.
Well, Dottie, I just want to say that I think it's best, people are sitting on the phone right now and they might be in a space or in a situation where they haven't built some of those relationships with their staff. So I want to say it's not too late. And the best way to go forward is to begin here if you haven't already done so.
Yes.
And have that vulnerability, have that relationship between people, build those connections so that when something bad happens, there is the knowledge of that genuine caring and support. And I think that makes it easy for people to say, I don't know what I need or want. And for the other person to say, and I don't know how to help. Because the relationship's already there. So that's everything we're talking about today. We're talking about safety and connection and love. I mean, those are the three things we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a comment here, great conversation. I appreciate hearing the honesty of, as a white woman, I don't know how to help my staff. Wouldn't it have been more helpful to have employers of color leading today's conversation? Just a thought. And the person is anonymous, so I can't respond to them directly. The reason we've chosen the people that are here today are because these are people who have expertise in mental health and are giving mental health services out in the community and are also employers. So, I think your point about listening to the community is something that we have to do as an organization and moving forward. But I just want to answer that. We need people with expertise to really influence how you all will be able to sort of, make this work in your own company. So I want to pivot just slightly a little bit here. And Elizabeth and Ann, this question may be for you. How can employers and teammates recognize when someone is in need of help or is at risk within their workforce? Liz, why don't we start with you on that?
Yeah, I think it's just, again, going back to paying attention, asking people what they need. I think some people are going to have a really hard time working this week, or some like Melanie said, it goes back and forth, right? So they might be okay today and not okay tomorrow, and so just staying in touch with that and offering them options. Of course, there's always EAP and other places, to go if they need to speak with someone. We're also working on, just setting up resources internally, but also externally, because there are a lot of folks who have offered to provide support who are not from the area. And sometimes that's helpful. So instead of, them coming into the community and, trying to help on the ground, they can help us by sharing resources or setting up, forums, virtual forums that our staff can join in on, maybe folks from New York City or from out of the area, that kind of thing. And just trying to compile those resources and share them with our staff.
I think often there are cues that somebody's not doing okay, distraction or physical symptoms, maybe stomach aches, headaches. Sometimes there are cues, right, in a workplace, irritability, intolerance, anger, and those could be related or not related to what's going on. But whenever somebody's experiencing that level of And we don't know, I'm going to say, this is something public that's happening. But generally speaking, for all employers, we don't know what's going on in people's lives. And sometimes it's a lot. So just in general, building those relationships and being aware of what you're seeing that might be a little bit out of character, and checking in. You got to check in. You got to ask, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? What's going on? That's, probably the best way.
Laney, is there anything you want to add to that part of the conversation?
Did you say my name?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
Just asking if you have a comment
no,
you want to add.
I piggyback off of that because, there is some awareness that, again, everybody grieves differently. Everybody goes through their own emotions. And you're right, sometimes there are cues, sometimes, right? And other times, because we function in such a professional way, I could spend 8 hours in my 7.5 in my office doing the things I do because I love my office, and then literally go home and you have no clue. You have no clue that I'm struggling other than the fact that I'm African American, right? So that I still feel like that there should be some things in place to make sure that when I need it, it's there.
Someone else made a comment saying, what if an employee is asking for something that we can't give them for whatever reason? What advice do you have about, and I understand you're not HR people, but what advice do you have about how to manage that? I mean, I think this again gets to the fear of an employer not wanting to expose a risk or perceived risk that I'm going to ask you what you need and you're going to tell me I need 5 weeks off paid and I can't give you that because that's precedent. What I'm afraid to ask you, right? So what advice would you give to employers about dealing with that issue of what happens if someone asks me for something that I'm not able to accommodate?
I think that if I can't give it, what can I do? And what resource can I deliver? So there are limitations to the resources that I might, or the flexibility or the capabilities that I have, but what can I do? But I think that that's also important in terms of honoring the boundaries of work, because that does make it a safe place, but yet offering other resources. So,
speaking of resources, Anne, so when you say, and there's a question.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
EAP, referral for counseling. Everybody has a mental health benefit. Connection to somebody that can help them with that. Sometimes it's family problems or money problems, or what we see a lot is problems with children and, the worry and they don't know what to do. So you don't have to solve all the problems, but you can reach out and connect. And if you don't know, that's what's been happening all week, right? We started there. People through collegial relationships, through business relationships, they call and say, I've got this, can you help? No, I might not be able to help, but I know that Liz is running a crisis team and maybe she can help. So it's working with each other in the community. We're all connected and we'll figure something out. I mean, what request could be so crazy, right? That would be something that there's no resource for.
There's a comment here, I think, that is worth sharing. Actually, all the comments which are in the Q&A are very thoughtful. But the one that, again, I'm looking for what are the tangible things employers can do. It's a good idea to share resources with employees on how they can help in the community. Donations, volunteering, etc.
Right.
Some people may cope by helping others, but also don't want to make those who may not be able to help feel guilty. So there's a question here. Should we use different wording and offerings for different age audiences separate from straight asking them, how do we know what might be better for someone in their 20s and 40s, et cetera, and also talking to someone who's elderly. Is there a beneficial online resource / tips that employers can refer to for guidance? Thank you, Nicole. That's an excellent question. Liz, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that there are a lot of different ways to help. And I think just acknowledging that people like Melanie has been saying, kind of address things and grieve in different ways. And some people need to be active, and some people want to donate and volunteer and, stay busy. And other people need, just time and space or time with their family. And I think just letting folks know that all of those are okay, and that we want to facilitate different ways that people have, and that if you're not ready to volunteer or not able to volunteer, and actually, there's a lot of people volunteering on the ground. So volunteering is very busy, and that's maybe not the most practical solution right now for folks. So giving them different options of things that they can do in terms of supporting others, and just acknowledging that people have different capacities and different amounts of free time, and just talking about that, I think is a good approach.
Do you know of any sort of online HR sort of resources for crisis situations that exist? I'm thinking maybe the Human Resources Association may have it, but do you all know of any that? And you're nodding there.
I think the Human Resources Association has a lot of good information and resources. I think many employers have EAPs. Employee assistance professionals that they work with that can help with some of those resources as well. Otherwise, I don't think I know the answer to that question without it maybe being a little more specific.
Okay, just to talk about EAP for a second, it's amazing that people don't know that have EAP, don't know that it's there. And I recently had an issue with an employee who was really struggling, and it said, look, you can take PTO, you can give whatever options we have. And one of the things I talked about was EAP, and they knew nothing about it. So I think all of us who are employers should really look and see what we have and make sure we're sharing that, because those are confidential ways for employees to get assistance that we generally don't. You only need them when you need them, and if you don't remember it's there, you don't access them. So.
A lot of what we've been doing, Dottie, and we actually did through COVID a lot, as well as have workshops for employers on mindfulness or coping with stress or connecting when you're disconnected, things like that. So sometimes wellness resources that employers can bring in really kind of just speak to the care of somebody, right? They're like, oh yeah, I needed that.
Well, I as we're sort of coming to the close of our time together, first of all, I want to thank each of you for being so honest, and Eleni in particular. I appreciate your lived experience, sharing your lived experience with us, and being here and making time and space to share that. That's a lot. So we appreciate it. But just want to give each of you the opportunity to sort of share final thoughts as we come to the close here. So Liz, why don't we start with you? Any final thoughts for the group?
Yeah, I want to thank the partnership for facilitating this opportunity for us to connect and share ideas about how to address, this horrific time. It is a collective trauma for our community, and I think everyone will respond in a different way and at a different pace. And so I think hearing that we should just be in touch and listening and asking our staff what support looks like, and try to be as responsive as possible, I think is the main theme of what we've heard here. And I hope that this will help other employers, going forward as we move through this, and hopefully there will be other opportunities in the future because this won't just end this week or even next week. This is going to be a process for our community and certainly for the Jefferson Avenue community going forward. So hopefully it's an ongoing conversation, and thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Liz. Anne?
I want to echo everything Liz just said. I think that we have short-term and long-term decisions to make as employers about how we're going to proceed. Certainly short-term to connect the best that we can with our staff in an authentic way and bring in resources if that's what's needed. But long-term to invest in those long-term relationships and the, say it out loud, committed to anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion. We all need to do better as a community. We're horrified. I think my horror is about how could this have happened, and then knowing that we all need to do better in anti-racism, inclusion, diversity, and a sense of belonging for everybody in our community.
I'm glad you brought up the active anti-racism public statements and thoughts and prayers. Is not what we're talking about here. I think it's really making it clear that that you're not just an ally, but anti-racist. Those listening, there is, and we can connect you with this, but there's a Buffalo Niagara shared the campaign that the Bills and the Sabres, the Stop Hate, Show Love campaign, which you may have seen. Any employer can download that, put their logo on it. It's on our website. It's a banner on the top of our website. It's our social media badges. We are sharing that message because I think that also shows the broader community that they are supported. And so it's something to consider. It doesn't cost anything. It's easy to do, and it's a sign of unity. And feel free to connect with us, and we can get you the downloadable material. So, Melanie, I'm going to give you the very last word here. Share your final thoughts with us.
Okay, so self-care is very important, and I speak from professional counselor, woman, African-American, human being. Continue on the journey, right? Learn about yourself, work towards the next stages of life. It's important to engage in activities, to do the things that we love to do, work on the soul, the body, the spirit. Embrace smiling, embrace laughing, laughing will trick the brain into happiness, okay? It's about endorphins, right? It triggers the muscles, right? Then endorphins are responsible for making us feel happy and to help us lower our stress level. If we are exercising our mind, we're going to work on meditation. We're going to work on journaling, reflections. Let's take some deep breathing, take some walk, do some exercise. It's important to do these things so that way, because they go hand in hand with our mental health, right? The brain and the body are interconnected. We need to communicate with family and friends and do all of the things that we want to do or that we haven't done in order to regain. I want to say this. I think it's important to regain grounding, right? Because this was shattering, earth shattering. So to regain grounding, the way to do that is to engage in self, to take care of self. It's a sensitive time for us people of color, as one can quite imagine. We are still experiencing racism in this day and age, but I believe with more communication, open dialogue, desire, and willingness to change, we can work to encourage each other into this change, thereby making the world change. If we all promote good, decency, respect, and true unity, then where does evil live? It doesn't. It has no dwelling. It has no place to live, but it starts at home, within ourselves, and what we feed our children. So I think we should work on standing together on the forefront permanently, not temporarily when things happen, but permanently. Let's truly work on peace together and unity for the greater good in all humanity. So I want to lastly say this. In my heart, death holds, it does not hold the final victory for the people who have been set free by Christ. I believe that our people are at the right hand of Christ. I know this. for this, I know.
Thank you for your thank you for your testimony. We really appreciate it. A number of you have given some suggestions for resources in the Q&A. We will gather that up, and in the thank you email we send you, we'll send the downloadable graphic link. We'll send the suggestions that some of you have made for resources back out to you. So thank you all. Peace to all of you, and let's stay together
Yes.
and support each other.